telling your prophetic story. So what's your prophetic story? It varies. As a prophet or a prophetic person, it can change over time. Your prophetic story might be your awakening, when the Lord called you as a prophet, when the Lord put his hand on you, when the Lord met you. That might be a prophetic story for you. I shared my story, my awakening story, or my calling story. Often is on my blog. I share it from time to time as the Lord leads me to share it. Many of you that have been following me know that I was called first. My blog is called The Lord Called Me to Be His Prophet, with a pen and a paper. Literally, that's my thing. I always, to this day, always have a pen and a paper. That's how I received my calling. The Lord began to speak to me, and I began to write as the Holy Spirit inspired me to write. That's my story, right? But then I have several other stories. As a prophetic person, you're going to have different encounters with God, and not necessarily everything that you have an encounter with that you will share. But I believe that it's important for prophets and prophetic people to begin to tell their story. All right. So when you talk about the art of conveying your prophetic story, let me put my notes up here. It is the art of sharing your prophetic testimony involves you conveying and transferring what the Lord has showed you through your experiences, through your dreams, through your visions that uplift and inspire other people. So what am I saying? As you begin to tell your story, whatever that prophetic story, whatever experience that is, right? You want to begin to understand that that actually inspires other people as you begin to share about this great vision you had, or you share about this dream that you had. Now, you want to be mindful with the dreams, because we see where that led Joseph. No, I'm just joking. But as you begin to share these things, it will inspire other people. So the art of you sharing your stories, all right, will inspire, uplift, and encourage others to realize that, guess what? God still speaks in this way, and it's encouraging to somebody else. So let me just say, who's qualified to share their prophetic story? Who? Do you have to be a preacher? Do you have to be a prophet? Do you have to be a pastor? Do you have to be an evangelist to share a prophetic story? Not necessarily. Anyone can testify, right? It's just like a testimony. You don't have to be a pastor to testify. You don't have to be a preacher to testify. We all should testify of the goodness of the Lord. And the fact that God still speaks today is a testimony, right? So everyone can testify, and testifying or sharing your prophetic story is for anyone who has the experience prophetic situations or prophetic experiences with the Lord, all right, that want to share with those around them. You don't necessarily have to go, shout it from the rooftop, but there's nothing wrong with sharing your experiences with your family. For example, if you are like myself, I'm a mom, I'm a wife. Before I was a mom and a wife, I was a daughter, I was a sister, I was an aunt, I was a cousin, a niece. I had other roles that I played in people's lives. And as I began to experience these different encounters with the Lord, guess what? I shared them with people. I shared them with my family. I shared them with my mom. I remember the first time I told my mother, Mom, God told me this. And she was like, what you mean God told you? Now, my mom was a believer. She was Baptist. She didn't mainly really believe in like the gifts of the Spirit like that. So when I would say, my God said, she was like, how he sound? What you mean God talking to you? You need to go somewhere? What do you mean? And it kind of, made I feel like, what's going on with my child? But I believe that you should share your story with those around you, because when you do that, you normalize prophetic experiences so that the enemy won't dominate the supernatural. Listen to what I say. I believe it's important for believers to share their prophetic stories so that the enemy will not dominate the supernatural. What do I mean by that? Is when people think of the supernatural, they typically think paranormal, on the other side. They're not necessarily thinking, right, about angelic things. They're thinking about demonic visitation or ghosts or all these things. They're not thinking like, all the angels of the Lord or encounters with prophets of God. Let's normalize the prophetic. Let's normalize the supernatural, right? The supernatural experiences are not isolated as Bible stories. Oh my God, let me say that. Supernatural experiences are not isolated as Bible stories. And even with it being Bible stories, listen, it's not Bible stories. Remember, that is your history as a believer. We got to graduate from Bible stories and Bible characters and understand that it's our history as believers. And those characters in the Bible were people. They're not characters, right? Ezekiel was a real man. Jeremiah was a real man. Moses was a real man. He wasn't a character in the Bible. The Bible is our history. So when we begin to share these things and share our prophetic experiences with those around us, it normalizes us. Just like a few weeks ago, I did a live called Help, I'm Married to a Prophet, right? And I had my husband come on and he shared what it's like being married to a prophet. It's normal. I'm going to bring my children on. They agreed that eventually that they both would come on and let me interview them on a segment called Help, My Mom is a Prophet, and what that means to them. Why my children have been on this journey with me since, they were born. They were born in the womb of a prophet. So it's very normal to them when people say, well, what does your mom do for a living? Oh, my mom's a prophet. It rolls off of their tongue like it's a normal thing, because why? They know their mom's prophetic story. They know their mom's prophetic story. Amen. So what makes it different than a regular traditional testimony? All right. Once again, we all should testify of the goodness of the Lord. That's a part of being a believer. We want to testify. All right. We testify of the goodness of God, right? How the Lord saved you, how he, blessed you, how he spared your life from a car accident, how he raised you from the dead, how he's all powerful, and so on and so forth. We overcome by the word of our testimony. We all should be testifying, right? But when you begin to speak of the art of your prophetic story, you are telling stories like your awakening story. You're telling stories like when the Lord gave your word to give someone else that might have saved their life. You're talking about visitation. You want to keep these things before your lips, so that way, if you're a parent and you have children and they start to experience supernatural experiences, you can normalize it. For example, one of my godchildren, she's like 3 years old, and I believe that this young lady has trance-like visions, right? This is just an example of when I say normalize the prophetic within your home, normalize the prophetic with your children, normalize the prophetic with your teenagers, because when you don't normalize the prophetic and you don't share your own stories and things begin to happen with those in your family or those around you, they begin to do research and look at other places and other sources to find out what they're experiencing. For example, if you have one of your teenagers, one of your children, or your cousin or another adult, they're having these experiences, they're going to start to Google, and trust and believe, more than likely, biblical or Christian things will not necessarily automatically come up from a Google search. Other things will come up first. So this is why I'm like, we need to tell our story so that now the true spiritual or supernatural can dominate, so that we're the ones that come up on a Google search, and not a witch, and not a psychic, and not your medium, and not your empath, and not your, what else they would call it, intuitive healer. Or I can tell you guys a lot of terminology because I study it. So I say all this to say, I believe one of my godchildren has trances, and I'm going to explain to you why. When the first time it happened, she's about to be 3, and the first time it happened, I was with her grandmother, and she was sitting at the table, and all of a sudden she went like this. And she started holding her ear. She goes, do you hear that? Do you hear that? And she's looking around, and she's literally holding her ear, and she's looking around saying, do you hear that? Do you hear that? And we're like, no, we don't hear this. And then all of a sudden she stops, and she just stops, and she like freezes. And I'm snapping. I'm saying her name. And she's not responding. She's snapping. I'm snapping. She's not, and she's still. And then I said her name. Her godmother was like, get some oil. Let's go. And I said, stop. We're not getting oil. We're not doing that. Hold on. Let me assess this. Now, we know that as prophets, you have the ability to judge, right? Something that's going on. So I'm discerning what's happening. And I knew that it wasn't evil immediately when it first happened. And then it's happened maybe 2 or 3 times since in this past year, let's say. So this young child I'm clear she has vision, because she hears stuff that no one else is hearing. Just like in the Bible, when the prophets, some of them had visions, or they went into trances, they had experiences. I felt like a dead man. I'm the only one who heard this. I'm the only one who saw this. So it's not abnormal, right? But when you make it a thing, it's not normal. And then they begin to search everywhere else. So as you share your own prophetic stories, and as you normalize supernatural experiences, you won't send those around you looking elsewhere, and they'll know where the true source of power and the true source comes from. Not the only power, not the only source, but the true source. Because remember, the prophetic is not isolated to the kingdom of God. It's not isolated. All right. It's not isolated. I mean, it's not that it's just not just us. Right. So we want to make sure that we keep that clear. So you want to share your experience. Talk to your children about some of the dreams that you have. Share it with your husband. I was telling somebody yesterday, just keep sharing with your husband. Eventually he'll believe that you see what the Lord is showing you. Eventually he'll see that you're right. Eventually, because sometimes people are in a marriage and one person may be a little bit more prophetic than the other. Another person might be a little bit more one person might be a little bit more prophetic than the other. And while the other one may understand a little bit when it's coming outside of their house, but they may not be as comfortable hearing it happen in their house. But when you normalize it, oh my God, the Lord showed me that there was an accident, whatever, and then boom, the next thing you know, they see that there was an accident happen. Or, oh honey, the Lord showed me that you're gonna get promoted on your job, and then boom, they get promoted. Or Lord, you just normalize it. Don't make it like it's a big thing. Normalize it so when they hear it, they can begin to say, oh my goodness, she really does hear God. Or, oh my God, he really does hear God. Or, oh my God, my mom really does hear from the Lord. Or, oh my God, my aunt, my cousin, my sister, my this, my that. Normalize it, because people can be much more encouraged. All right. So where do you want to tell your prophetic testimony? I just said it. Share it at your house. And what I mean by testimonies, I mean testimonies. It can be more than one experience. It could be your initial experience, whatever it is you want to share on a regular basis. Okay. So share it with your family, share it in your home, share it at your job. If you see someone on your job getting up from, oh my goodness, somebody on one of the days of the boot camp on the Q&A shared how she had a dream that one of her coworkers was like pregnant from another coworker. Nonetheless, her coworkers were like sleeping around or something like that, and lady was pregnant by the other coworker, and nobody knew, but she had it in she had it, and then she saw it in a dream, and the lady wasn't visibly pregnant. So I'm saying all that to say that share it at your job, share it even if the Lord releases you to share something. There's nothing wrong with putting a post on social media. Hey, the Lord showed me that. Like, I remember years ago, before we started having all of these random shootings that we were having, I don't even know what year it was. The Lord, I was wrestling in prayer one time. I was doing intercessory prayer at church, and the Lord allowed me to hear these multiple gunshots. And I knew that there was about to be a spirit released in the earth that would allow multiple school shootings to happen. And I shared it back then on my Facebook. And lo and behold, what began to happen is we saw that multiple school shootings, this and that, were happening, and so on and so forth. I shared it as a Facebook post, what people can see. I have 2,700 Facebook friends on my personal page. Most of them are people that I went to school with, people that are from back home in New York, where I'm from, mainly those that would probably, I don't say not know what a prophet is, but like they would not, they know me as Andrea or as Tay. My middle name is Shantae. They know me as Tay, the hairstylist or whatever, from back then. So when they're seeing these things, it can make them go, huh, oh wow, well, she did say that. It's a way to continue to show people that God is still speaking, right? So you can share it at home, work, friends, social media. Why is it important to share? Because it can also help to transform lives and strengthen people's faith. It'll strengthen people's faith, but it'll also strengthen your faith too, to believe that you hear from the Lord. This is important. If you're just coming in, do me a favor, make sure that you heart this video. All right. We're talking about the art of telling your prophetic story, aka your prophetic testimony, how the Lord speaks to you, what he's been showing you, how he's revealed things to you. So that way we normalize it. All right. So make sure that you like the video and share at least, and also follow. If you're not following, make sure that you follow. That way you'll get notifications when I go live. But it's important because you want to understand that it will strengthen their faith, but yours too. Isn't it? For those of you who have the ability to, prophesy or receive words from the Lord, whether it's through visions, dreams, or however he speaks to you, and what he speaks to you comes to pass, doesn't it blow your mind? Am I the only person all these years later that it still blows my mind when the Lord speaks to me? I can't be the only one. I can't be the only one. Wow. I mean, I can't be. All right. So we want to make sure that we remember that. So in Revelations 12 and 11, it says that they defeated him by the blood of the Lamb and by their testimony, and they did not love their lives so much that they were afraid to die. This verse highlights the power of personal testimony in overcoming challenges that inspire others. Okay. Exactly. So y'all agree that it blows your mind every time still as God speaks to you, right? I'm telling me too. This morning, the Lord told me to shift something. I was planning to do something in the middle of January. I had a plan. I was going to do something, and I've been talking about it to the the people that come on with the prayer. I said, "Oh, we're going to have an in-person situation." And this morning, I decided randomly, "Oh, I'm going to shift out. I'm going to try to do that maybe in March." And I'm going to let them know. So if you're on Consecrate 2023, we're shifting stuff to March, by the way. And this morning, I ended up getting like 2 assignments that weekend. Like I literally just made up my mind this morning. Like an hour later, I got 2 assignments for the same weekend. God blows my mind. It's very, very interesting how he do that. All right. So listen, why don't we share? Let's talk about that a little bit. Why are we not sharing our prophetic testimony? I believe the reason number one why we might not share our prophetic testimony is because we are fear of rejection. All right. We're afraid that people might reject us because they'll think that we're a little bit crazy, or that people might judge us, or that we don't want to look away. That's always typically what I know. Most people, as a mentor of prophets, most of the time people are afraid to get it wrong, which is why they don't want to share. Or they'll lean toward, I always say dreamers lean toward, I had a dream, so that way they're not, if they get it wrong, they don't go. They don't look bad because it was just it's just a dream. Oh, I probably ate something. Oh, I probably just ate a little bit of pizza. Oh, I had a piece of fish and I dreamt crazy. Oh, they don't want to put God on it, that they know that God told them that this person was pregnant, or the Lord told them that, revealed to them that this person should take the job. But fear of rejection will do that for you. Also, criticism. Let me just be honest with y'all. I have I have heard some things that people have said criticized wise about me, where I'm like, oh my God. But if I let that stop me, then I wouldn't be the prophet who I am today. But trust me, criticism comes with it. Fear of rejection comes with it. You will be rejected when you decide to share what the Lord is telling you, and you definitely will be criticized. But over time, you develop a tough skin to it. Sometimes it hurts depending on the source of where it comes from, but you eventually learn how to allow that stuff to roll off of your back, because you understand that you're not speaking for yourself. Remember, a prophet is a divine spokesperson for a deity. I understand that when the Lord gives me a word, it's not my word, it's his word. But it takes time to get that confidence and knowing that what he's ascending you, whether it's however he speaks to you, that you can convey that message. All right. So understand that fear of rejection will come with the territory. And that's why many people don't share, because they're afraid. And then number 2, I believe, is lack of storytelling skills. Listen, most people are afraid to speak publicly. That's just the truth. Individuals who want to share their stories, but they lack storytelling skills to do so effectively, leaving their messages less impactful. This is why, if you know that you're called to prophesy, like out, speak me with your voice, or if you're called to preach or minister, this is why it's important to learn how to speak. Meaning, whether you might want to, I don't know, go on YouTube, take some people speaking skills, or do some things. And there's some things that are within the public speaking arena that I do that are not in the etiquette of public speaking, but I still believe you still have to be yourself. But there is an art, there is a skill to speaking. You might be afraid because you're like, I don't know how to speak, or I don't know how to say, if I get up and testify, what if I stutter? What if I do this? Listen, Moses had a speech impediment, and whether or not you guys realize it, I can talk a mile a minute. I talk very, very fast, and I'm intentionally, in my mind, when I'm speaking, I'm constantly saying to myself, slow down. And I constantly have to say to myself, take a deep breath, because I can speak 1,000 miles a minute. And it's the truth, right? So there's an art to speaking. And even as a kid, my mother used to stomp her foot and go boom. And she would call my middle name, Shantae, slow down. So there are times, literally, my mother is on to glory. She's transition in 2020, but there are times when I'm speaking like in these moments and I hear that boom, Shantae, slow down, right? Because that's a thing. So we all have something, right? And we all have something within our natural makeup that will make us afraid to tell our prophetic story. Great to see you on, Janelle. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. We all have something that makes us afraid, but at the end of the day, you still have to tell the story. And I believe that these prophetic stories or testimonies, it's an ongoing thing. They don't just stop. All right. When you stop because you're afraid to talk, and let me just say this, if you're afraid to talk and you're great at writing, write. There's nothing wrong with a good old blog. I got a whole prophetic blog. I've been blogging for a long time, but I started blogging consistently. I think it was in 2020. All right. Blog. If you're afraid to blog, or if you're afraid to be on camera, don't be on camera. Go on, what's that app? Go on Clubhouse. Do a podcast. See, there's skillful different ways where you can begin to share your story without having to be on the camera per se. But I'm not teaching about social media right now. We're talking about that in Embrace Your Prophetic Voice 5-day prophetic boot camp that's coming up on Monday. Join me over there. It's free, 5 days next week. If you're not in the Arise and Shine Facebook community, level 1 mentorship is free with me. The caption or the link for that is in the description of this video. Arise and Shine, prophetic training and equipping for Kingdom Voices. It's a free Facebook group. We're doing the boot camp over there. But back to the point of you telling your prophetic story, you have to make sure that you are going to get your voice, because voice isn't only actually speaking. There's a way to get voice without speaking. You can speak. Oh my goodness. I don't know if Angel's on. She's probably at work. Angel Purdy. She's one of the she does a lot of the like prophetic dance in our ministry in our church, and she could speak without opening her mouth. Her motions speak. If you ever see her minister prophetically, and I mean, how many of you have ever seen someone minister as a prophetic dancer? They don't have to say a word, but their very movement speaking. If you're prophetic, you can gather what they're saying in emotion without even speaking. When you're reading someone's words, they're not literally speaking, but you hear the tone of voice that they're speaking when they're speaking through their writing. You see? So at the end of the day, to embrace your prophetic voice, to tell your prophetic story, it's not going to always be like right now, how I'm in this live speaking within a live, right? It's not going to always be that way. So you have to understand, however it is that God is calling you to put out his prophetic voice. I am a scribe. I love writing, but I also speak, so it goes either way. You just have to know which way. Sometimes I'm like, I want to be on a thing, but I don't want to be on camera, right? God first called me as a dancer. Me too. Hey, where my dancers? If you're a dancer and the Lord has given you the ability to dance for him, raise that hand emoji. I'm curious to know. I know, me too. Dancers, there's a few dancers on, but dancing is actually speaking too. Any form of the arts typically has voice, even if it's not actually physically with a voice. But I'm not going to go there. So you have to be comfortable telling your prophetic story, telling your prophetic story. And let me say this is the last piece about this. When you don't, oh my, did I know that? Did I know that? I don't know if I knew that. Look at these dancers on. Oh, and the dancers happen to be my mentees. That's funny. We might all have to start dancing again. No, although I do think about dancing again, seriously, at times. But the point is that we want to make sure that when you don't share your prophetic story, you miss opportunities for inspiration and to be a witness to others. Let me just say this, and I'm going to close out with a very interesting story. I don't know if I've ever shared this story. I've shared it publicly, but not publicly, meaning I've shared it on lives before in smaller mentorship groups, but I don't know if I really ever shared it publicly. And I want to share a story. It is a prophetic story that I think will encourage you guys to understand why I'm so passionate about the importance of telling your prophetic story, and why I say this. It can allow you to miss opportunities to inspire or to be a witness for someone. Okay, so if you are skeptical about the prophetic, if you don't understand how it works, just hear what I'm saying. This really happened. I'm not making it up, and nor am I crazy. This was a real experience that happened to me. So years ago, maybe a good 4 or 5 years ago at this point, I had what I call translation or travel in the spirit. Some people call it outer body experience. That's what it's known of. It's when your spirit leaves your body. Okay, it's biblical. It's in the Bible. I didn't make it up. It's in the Bible. I'm not talking about astral projection where I'm purposely taking myself out of myself. We're not talking about that. The Spirit of the Lord took me out of myself. Okay, I was sleeping and the Spirit of the Lord took me out of myself, and I ended up I lived in New York at the time. And when I was translating, typically it's happened to me several times. And when it's happening, I know it's happening because I know what the sound sounds like when it's happening. I know what it feels like when it's happening. I know exactly all the different things that are transpiring when the Lord allows me to translate in the spirit. So this one particular night, I was sleeping in my bed, and literally I said, okay, I'm going somewhere. I don't know where I'm going. But as I translate, I end up boom in front of this wooden door. Okay. When I'm translating, it feels like I am on a water ride that's a tunnel or a tube. And if you've ever been on a water ride, right, you know what it feels like when you're going in a tunnel and it's really fast. That's what it feels like for me when I translate. Okay, when the Spirit of the Lord takes me. And I'm translating and I'm going, and boom, I end up in front of this wooden door. It's really sunny out, beautiful sky. I open up this door, and I open the door, and I see there's a stairs, a flight of wooden steps in front of me. And I decide to walk up these wooden steps. I have no clue where I am. I don't know whose home I'm in. I don't knock. I don't take a key. I just walk in there and I walk up the stairs. And there's a bedroom door, and I open the bedroom door. And I look inside of the room, and there is a woman laying in her bed with white sheets and white nightgown on. And I decide to walk over to this woman. And when I got close to the woman, I recognized that she was someone that I knew. Now, for those of you that may or may not know, I spent 17 years as a salon owner, and it was one of my clients who had moved away from New York, probably about this time by now, about 2 years. She had moved away from New York, so she was no longer in New York. And I look at her in the bed, and then I pull back the covers. Okay. I pull back the covers, and I get in the bed with her. Okay. And she's facing me, and I'm facing her. And I move myself very close to her, and I take her by her back. She's asleep the entire time. She never wakes up. And I take my left hand and I put it on her lower back. And I begin to take her back, and I press her womb to my womb. So my hand is on her back. We're womb to womb as two women laying in a bed, womb to womb. And I begin to pray in the spirit, praying in tongues. I don't really know what I'm praying for at the time, whatever it is. Needless to say, after I'm done praying, she never wakes up. I get out of the bed. I close back the covers. I walk out of the room, close the door, walk back down the stairs, open up the door. As soon as I open the door, I'm back to translating. Okay, the whole sounds and everything. And then I remember, whenever I come back into my body, I always literally, the Lord takes me through the roof of my house. This is what happens. I can feel the roof, I can feel the attic, I can feel the bedroom, and then I can feel myself hit my bed. That's exactly how it happens. It's like boom, boom, boom. And then when I get back, it's a wake up really quickly. And then I'm like, whoa, what just happened? That's just how it's happened to me. And I wake up and I'm like, oh my goodness. I'm like, that's crazy, you know? So I didn't think to say anything. Okay. So about a week later, I'm in my salon working, and I'm in the back. At the time, I had a spa, I had multiple rooms, and I was in the hair loss room, which was an isolated room where it was private for people that had hair loss issues. So they would be comfortable in, in the privacy of their own space with me. And one of my assistants, she comes to the back. She says, "Hey, Andrea, got a minute?" I said, "Well, not really. I'm with a client." She's like, "Oh, somebody's here to see you." She said she wanted to surprise you. She was in town and she just wanted to pop in and say hello. And I said, "Oh, who is it?" And she said the person's name. Let me give a name like Natalie. I'm just going to use Natalie as an example. She goes, "Oh, it's Natalie." And I'm like, "Natalie?" And she goes, "Yeah, she's here." And I'm like, "Natalie's here?" It's the same woman that I had a dream about the vision with about a week ago. So the Lord begins to minister to me, and he says, "I brought her here because I want you to do exactly what I had you do in the vision a week ago. I want you to lay hands on her womb. I want you to press her womb to your womb. And I want you to declare and decree right now that her womb would open up so that she could receive a child." Now I'm telling the Lord, because see, I'm trying to do my client's hair. I'm telling the Lord how he's interrupting my workday. This is me being honest. "Lord, you're interrupting my workday." The client, Nancy, Natalie, Nicole, Natanya, whatever, I'm going to give different names, right? She is a Catholic. And I'm like, "Lord, she don't believe like I believe. And you want me to do all that? Like, I don't want to scare her, whatever." So I'm wrestling with the Lord. Lo and behold, After I finish my client, I bring her in the back. We're talking. In my head, I am freaking out. I'm just gonna be honest. I'm like, Lord, she's gonna think of all the things I told y'all: the rejection, the criticism, the fear, the I don't want to look crazy. She's gonna think I'm crazy. She's gonna think I'm crazy. Now, if she was like me, apostolic, prophetic, Pentecostal, oh, I would have did it. I would have got with her. I would have laid her out. I would have, because it's her culture. She's a part of the kingdom. She believes the way that I believe. But I couldn't get past the fact of she's gonna think I'm weird. She's gonna think I'm a freak. I couldn't get out of myself. I was so busy caught up with what I was thinking about what she was thinking. So when she came, I was talking to her, how you like it in the South, how you like it, this and that. And she, was there talking. And guess what, y'all? I couldn't do it. I was so afraid. I could not, my fear of everything, I couldn't do it. So, we sat, we spoke for a while, hugged her, and she was on her way. I was on my way, and I was like, Lord, I'm so sorry. I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. Lo and behold, maybe a month or two later, I'm on Facebook, and guess what? She puts up a post. She just had found out she was pregnant. And I'm like, oh my goodness. And the Lord was like, when I translated you, when I took you in the spirit and opened up her womb, it was done already then. It was done in the spirit. He said, I brought her to you in New York so that way she could know that the child that she has in her womb is special, and that she can know that this child is blessed, and that she can know who the Lord her God is that opened up her womb. And then the Lord rebuked me. And he said, you, my daughter, missed out on an opportunity to, oh my goodness, let me pull this back up. And I'm going to tell y'all, God will speak to you like this, just so you know. He will speak to you like this. You missed out on an opportunity to be an inspiration and to be a witness for me because of your own fear of what you thought you would look like, your own pride of how you prefer the way that you would look. You missed an opportunity for a soul to be saved. You missed an opportunity. So I can speak from example and say to y'all, listen, don't be afraid to tell your prophetic story. Even me now sharing this with you all, this is a part of my prophetic story, a part of my journey where I was afraid. I was afraid to step out. I didn't want to, whatever. Where now you could say, you know what, when the Lord requires that you do something, make sure that you obey what he is saying for you to do, because at the end of the day, it's not about you, but it's about the message that he's put in your mouth. It's about the people that he has put for you to inspire and to encourage. Oh, hey, Andrina, great to see you on. It's about the people that he has put in your path for you to inspire. It wasn't about me getting so caught up in, oh, how I'm gonna look. She's gonna think I'm crazy. Do you think she would have cared how crazy I pressed my womb up against her womb when she found out that she had conceived a baby? Do you think that she would have cared about any of the weirdness that her hairdresser was speaking in some tongues over her head that she had never even heard of? She wouldn't have cared. 2 weeks later, or whenever she found out she was pregnant, she would have had to drop to her knees and know, like, only God can do this. But because of me, I as a prophet got in the way of a testimony. Now I repented. I don't what's the word? I'm not condemning myself over it anymore. Oh my God, I was so guilty. As a matter of fact, when the baby turned 2, I couldn't take it. I see him on Facebook. Every time I see the little baby, I'm like, oh my God. So one day I said, you know what? I'm just gonna tell her. I don't care if it's not effective or whatever. So when the baby was like 2, she put up the birthday picture or something, and I inboxed her and was like, I gotta tell you a story. And I shared with her. Of course, it was less effective, right? Because it had already happened. But I shared with her. She knows. And, that is what it is. But this is why it's important that we share our prophetic stories, and why, for me, even the boot camp that I'm doing, the 5-day boot camp that I'm doing, which is called Embracing Your Prophetic Voice, which is why the ebook that's coming along with it, talking about embracing your prophetic voice, is because I know what it's like when you don't embrace it. I know what it's like when you're afraid to say what God is telling you to say. I know what it's like when being a prophet is not normal in a community, in a town, in a city where there's nobody who's known to be a prophet. Prophets come in, they fly in for a revival and they leave, but they don't live there. I know what it's like when the Lord calls you out of a place where it's like, can anything good come from there? Oh my goodness. I tell people don't know, but I literally was born in the hood of my county in the apartment. My mom didn't even make it to the hospital when she had me because she didn't know she was pregnant with me for the whole pregnancy. But I'm not going to share that prophetic testimony. There are so many stories that I could share that would allow people to believe in the Lord because it's undeniable that these things have happened. Amen. These things are documented. It's not like I made them up. And that's why I believe in documenting your stuff, documenting your stuff. Anyway, so I hope today has blessed you. I hope today has blessed you and it has encouraged you to share your prophetic stories. Let's normalize the prophetic so that way the enemy doesn't dominate the supernatural. Oh my God, I'm gonna have to make that a part of my slogan, normalizing the prophetic so that the enemy no longer dominates the supernatural. If any of my mentees is on, send that to me so I can, I'm serious though. But that's kind of what the Lord is ringing out to me. Normalize the prophetic so that the enemy no longer dominates the supernatural. That's what we need to be doing right now. So with your share your stories with your kids, with your spouses, with your coworkers, share it. Just share it, share it, share it. Don't hide it. Yes, the Bible says that the Lord surely does nothing unless he reveals his secrets to his servants, the prophets. But at some point, you have to share what he's telling you to share. Don't share it afterward. Oh, the Lord did show me that. It's no, I mean, nobody believes you now. It happened already, right? Nobody believes you now. Let's normalize sharing our prophetic stories. All right. Let's make that a normal thing. And not all of us are called to do the same thing. Not everybody's called to be a prophet, but many of us can. Many of us can, share. We can open up our mouth and share what the Lord is showing us. And it's encouraging when someone says, hey, this is what God showed me he's going to do for you, whatever. And it actually happens. You can be that witness.